Okay, I think we can get started and start with introduction. Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. My name is Matthias Fahn from the University of Hong Kong. Welcome everybody to tonight's or to today's Luohan Academy webinar. We are very happy to welcome Dr. Brian Jabarian from the University of Chicago to today's webinar. He's like an economist at the Booth School of Business, and Brian's research generally examines how new technologies reshape cognitive work and also decision making in the design of firms and markets. So today we are super happy that he will present voice AI in firms. It's a huge natural field experiment with 10,000s of applicants and randomized job interviews between human recruiters and AI agents, and also a choice between the two. And they use this setting to study like the impact of AI on hiring quality, firm performance, and human behavior. Brian generally studies how AI like changes decision making and operation in AI text detection and policy, charting how like LLMs can upgrade experimental methods and so on. So Brian has a super exciting research agenda, and we are very happy that he will present his Voice AI in Firms paper today. So Brian, before I hand over to you, um, if anyone has questions, please feel free to raise your hand, and then I will try to interrupt Brian if he doesn't see them. And so we will see. So usually this should work, and we will also have more time for discussion at the end. So if you have real more substantive questions, maybe you can wait until the end. Then we can discuss them. But now I hand over to you, Brian. Thanks so much, and we are very much looking forward to your presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Matthias, for the introduction, and thanks a lot for the organizers of this webinar for the invitations. So yeah, I'm very excited to present you my job market paper. It's co-authored with Luca Henkel. Briefly, I won't go again my biography because Matthias did it, but basically this job market paper inserts itself in a broader research agenda that I've developed over the last few years. It's named Artificial Process Outsourcing, and the idea here is to understand how AI automates, reallocates, redesigns information, processes, and decision making. And so to study this type of questions, I have signed last year a 5-year research partnership with PSG Global Solution, which is a recruiting firm inserted in a bigger business process outsourcing leader called Teleperformance. So Teleperformance is operating in 110 countries, 170 different types of markets. They have 500,000 employees, and they process 5 million candidates per year in different types of jobs. So it can be customer services, legal work, admin work on behalf of Fortune 500 companies mostly. And so PSG Global Solution is their recruiting arm, basically. And this access gives me the chance to run a few field experiments per year. And so the first one I did is my job market paper. So before digging into the details, I want to give you an overview of the job market paper and the key message I would like you guys to have in mind, and then we will go into the detail. So this paper study basically high volume markets, high volume in the sense that like there is a lot of turnover. We are hiring for customer services jobs. We are focusing in this hiring process on the interview. So it's like this information collection stage. And basically, when you think about this type of context, when a human recruiter performs a job interview, it repeats this task at massive scale. As I mentioned, Teleperformance manage 5 million per year. In our setting, we have 70,000 candidates. And so when the human recruiters perform a lot of job interviews, they do it with a lot of variance. And this is a negative outcome for the hiring firm, but also for the candidates. And so the questions we are asking is, if we replace human recruiters for conducting job interviews by an AI agent that will conduct the job interview, what happened to the hiring outcomes and the match quality? Does it help to improve or worsen the match quality? So to study this question, as Matthias mentioned, we launched a large natural fit experiment in the pipeline of PSG Global Solution with 70,000 candidates. So when candidates were invited to get a job interview, they were invited randomly to get a job interview with an AI or human or getting the choice. But after the job interview, I want to stress that like regardless of who conducted your job interview, whether it was an AI agent or a human interviewer, a human recruiters always evaluated your job, the job interview and made the decisions. So if you got a job interview with an AI, a human basically reviewed the job interview and made a decision. So that is to say, we really focus on the intervention is really focusing on the interview stage, nothing else. Okay, what are the results when you replace human interviewers with AI agents? Well, what we find is that basically AI-led interviews leads to 12% more job offers, 18% more retention, and between 16 to 18% retention between 1 month to 4 months retention rate. And this is an improvement in match quality. I will come back in a minute for why we are using retention here as a metric for match quality. There are also organizational returns for the firm, for the hiring firm. So because it's a very high turnover market, there is also another constraint for the firm, which is there is a very low conversion rate. When candidates apply to a job with PageGroup Global Solution, they're also doing it with other competitors. And so basically going fast to the job interview is a way to not lose candidate in the pipeline. And so AI basically helps to go 4 times faster to the job interview. Of course, you have a slower evaluation time because now you have a stock of AI interviews to review. But there is already profitability as well in the cost of actually running an interview after 8,500 interviews. When you are in a low environment market, like we are in the job market paper, which is a Philippine. But if the firm was going to run this experiment in the US after 2,000 interviews, they will be profitable with AI-based interviews. And one thing I want to say here is that the firm I work with, they didn't develop the AI, right? So it's truly an AI vendor providing this tool. So it's truly like a one-click development. So there is no training of the AI or like you would have with a human recruiter. So you have also this kind of saving here. Okay, so the question that we're asking is like, what is explaining this improvement in retention, basically? And the key message of this paper is to say that basically the way the AI conduct the interview is better in the following sense. AI agents collect information during the job interview in a more consistent way than human recruiters, basically. What does that mean? It means that basically AI standardizes the interview in the sense that like it conducts different types of interviewing tasks more consistently than human recruiters. So it can be covering a certain list of topics, following a certain order, having a certain language and using sample questions. This is all done more consistently by AI agents than human recruiters. In return, so a conversation is a joint event, right? So it's not like there is a direct causal effect, but there is this event happening, which is by performing the interview that way, this helps the candidates to more precisely reveal the type. So in the sense that like now, basically the human candidates provide more precise information to the human recruiters who are going basically to have a higher precise information plates to make the decision making, which translates in higher matching quality. So the conditional job offer accepted, there is a high retention rate between 30 and 120 days. So that's basically the key message of the paper. Okay, so if there are no questions, so far, I will like to start with the motivation and then we will go into the design and the results. Okay. So the motivation of this paper, if we take a step back from what I just mentioned, we can see that so far, most of the papers and the technology has been basically seen AI as a way to provide information and to augment humans. So it is, for instance, AI providing code assistance to humans, coders or writing assistants to human writers. So it's always AI providing information to the humans. But there is now a shift in the paradigm of AI and the technologies, which is now AI seeing AI as a way to collect information from humans directly by directly interacting with them. So it's truly about having these AI agents autonomously capable of collecting information from the humans. And this is what we are focusing on in this paper. In particular, we are focusing on the context of hiring, where basically AI now, through voice, so it's over phone, are going to conduct job interviews. And basically, the way it works is that it has nothing to do with the type of bot you may have seen or been interacting so far. When you call a bot over the phone, it tells dial one, dial two, next, etc. This is not the case here. You have a true natural conversation with an AI that is going to ask you questions, listens, think, follow up naturally and strategically based on your previous answer, and prompt candidates to reveal their type, basically. So as I mentioned, after the interview, the human recruiters are going to evaluate the candidate and make the hiring decision. So the role here of the AI is to collect information from the candidate and to provide this information to the human recruiters. This paper is basically inserting itself in 4 strands of the literature. So far, AI has been seen as a way to augment and improve the output and quality in different domains. And here we are basically showing that not only AI augmentation, but also here AI automation can improve outputs. There is also this massive work done on algorithm and labor markets. But so far, most of this algorithmic screening have been taking care of the stage before the job interview or after the job interview. And here, basically, you can see that AI can improve the screening during the interview. And job interviews are going to become more and more relevant because if everyone is using also this AI to help them writing the cover letter, etc., they're going to be like a downplay or downweight of the AI signals before or after the job interview. So now the job interview is going to become also very more important. This paper also relates to the notion of like design of human AI collaboration and trust of AI signals, because here AI is collecting information and providing information for human recruiters. And we're going to see how basically human recruiters is going to weight differently the information collected by an AI interviewer versus the information collected by a human recruiters. And we're going to see that there is different behaviors happening here. And also here, one thing that we are contributing to is, well, the notion of expertise. Conducting a job interview is not an easy task, and it's a very complex one. And it's the last one that I was thinking that AI would be capable of doing. So here, showing that AI is capable of performing expertise task in a way that is non-trivial is quite also interesting. Okay, so the design, as I mentioned, it's an experiment embedded in the recruiting pipeline of PSJ Global Solution. And here we are recruiting for 40 different types of customer services position in the Philippines. And this is done on behalf of 43 different clients. So there are like 23 Fortune 500 firms and 20 European leaders. So it is always customer service agents that we are recruiting for, but it can be for healthcare, retail, finance, travel, etc. And the business model that PSJ, the recruiting firm, has is that basically 2 things. One, it's a threshold-based hiring process. So they hire if it's good enough for 2 reasons. One, because as I mentioned, there is a very low conversion rate during the recruitment pipeline. And there is also a high turnover on the market once candidates are hired as employees. So basically, even if Netflix says I need 100 people this month, the firm is just going to issue offers as long as they think there is a good enough candidate. They are compensated if basically they provide a good match to the Fortune 500 companies. So the question here is, what is a good match and how do they measure match quality here? So the way they measure and we measure match quality in this market is through retention. And more particularly, they use 30-day retention as the core metrics for measuring match quality. So why this works in our settings? For 5 reasons. One, as I mentioned, there is a high turnover. Like when I mean by high turnover, I mean up to 20% turnover after 1 month, and this can reach 50% of turnover over a year. It's a very inefficient market, the BPO market. It is also a very low friction market on both sides. That is to say, employees leave voluntarily at any time they want during the job, and firms are no shy firing non-performant employees. The work they do, customer services agents, it's a very standardized work. That is to say, I don't have yet access to the KPI for the on-job performance, but I know that there is a lot of KPI. So it's intensively monitored performance job. And there is a fast learning of the employee type. This I have. So this is to say, the starters here contain a 1 week training. So after 1 week of training, if didn't pass the training, they are fired basically. So if they stay, it means that basically they are a short proxy of being good enough employee. And there is no incentive for the employees. So it's a flat wage. There is no delayed incentive. And so for all these reasons, retention here is a good metric for measuring match quality, basically. So far, so good? Okay. So there are like 8 steps in the hiring process. And so the candidates start by creating the profile. They have a very short screening process by measuring their whether they are likely to be some background check, if they're eligible for the work. And then once they are invited basically at the job interview here, they're randomized to get a job interview within these 3 conditions. So with 20% of chance, they get a job interview with a human recruiter. So job interviews are all over the phone here. With 60% of chance, they get randomized to get a job interview over the phone with an AI voice agent. And with 20% of chance, they get the choice to choose between getting a job interview with an AI or a human. So those weights have been imposed by the firm, and I won't present the result of the choice here. I won't have the time. If I have the time, I will present at the end. But in all that next, and in the slides, I will focus on these first 2 branches, basically. So to give you an example, a bit of like the type of question that are asked during the interview. So for instance, those are not just like, they are structured interviews in the sense that like there is yes and no type of questions, but there is also a lot of open-ended answers type of questions. Can you tell me a bit about yourself and why you're interested in this role? Where are you currently residing? So this is in the Philippines, there is a lot of different aisles. So trying to understand whether the candidate is likely to come or not to the job. Will there be any issues commuting or not? They're also trying to check for attrition risk, right? So may I ask if you have planned to pursue your studies? A lot of the candidates have college degrees. So for instance, if you listen to some interviews, you will see that like some love their studies. So here the AI will pick up that actually if they love the studies, maybe they want to come back, to go back to studies. So the AI will say, hey, do you have any intention to go back to studies? And then the reasons for why they apply for this job, how long do they see working in this company to check whether they are likely to meet the 30-day retention metric or not, and etc. And there are also some kind of scenario-based type of questions. Suppose you have, this type of angry clients, how would you handle it? So the role of the interview is truly about measuring communication skills, fit to the job, and risk basically of meeting the 30-day retention or not. After the job interview, the candidates are invited to take a standardized test, and the standardized test contain 2 parts. One part is an English test to measure how they are good in English to the standardized metrics, because they will be working for American companies mostly, or European companies. And also an analytical test, which measure basically the critical thinking and a capability of solving problems. So you have these 3 components for making a decision making, which is a job interview, which is evaluated by the human recruiters, providing a score between 1 and 3. They also have to provide the recruiters also have to provide the reason for their scoring. And the interview here is truly measuring the communication skills. And then you have 2 objective tests that measure how good candidates are going to be to solve problems and how well they speak English. And so the human recruiters take these 2 sources of information and then make a job offer, basically. So far, so good on the design and the motivation, etc. Okay, great. So for
Sorry, Brian, I may not fully get the hiring decision part. So this
yes,
threshold is determined by algorithm if
no,
it's
it's
interviewed
just
by AI.
No, it is determined by the human experts. Basically, we cannot identify this cognitive threshold.
So then the hiring would still be like a AI aided human decision.
Yes. We are only isolating here. Here, we only automatize the information collection stage. So this is truly here, the job interview this is what we automatize. So of course, this notion of augmentation versus automation is always depending on the reference point that you are using. So here we automatize the entire task of conducting job interview. So this is the automated task. Now you have the transcripts, you have the audio. They are used basically by the human recruiters to evaluate the job interviews and using also the test score to make a job decision.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so if all is clear, now we can turn to the results. And so we have like 25 minutes, so this is great. Our result and mechanism, and I may have time for covering some additional part of the paper. Okay, so first we look at the unconditional effect of AI interviews on hiring outcomes. So here you'll see 3 outcome variables. So job offers, job starters that include the 1-week training, and the 30-day retention. So what we compare here on the y-axis is the share of applicants invited to interview with a human. So candidates who are interviewed by a human get 8.7% of job offers. The AI-led interviews leads to 9.73% of job offers. So this is an increase of 12% relatively to the baseline, which is significant. AI leads also to an increase of 18% in job starters relatively to the human baseline. And there is also an increase of 18% in 30-day retention relatively to the human baseline. So those are unconditional effects. And those unconditional effects are persistent through time. If you look at the between 30-day retention to 120-day retention, you see that basically AI leads to at least more than 16% retention rates over up to 4 months, basically. So this result is interesting, but here it doesn't tell us whether those retention gain come from the fact that we are issuing more job offers in the AI branch and there are more people starting the job, or whether there is something happening in terms of match quality because AI might lead to a better screening process. So to analyze and to answer this question, we have like 3 steps. The first one is we need to understand whether there is a difference in terms of results when you look at the conditional on job offer accepted, basically. We look at this at here and not job offer status because job offers accepted is the last step where I can identify my average treatment effect, because between job offer accepted and job offer status is a lot of background check and everything that starts that I don't control. Second step is, well, maybe even if you have like higher conditional rates with AI, maybe you are actually screening for the wrong candidate because maybe you are actually hiring for people who are more likely to stick around, or maybe firm being more reluctant to fire, and that might be basically showing up in the exit decomposition after 30 days. Once we have looked at these 2 things, then maybe we can look at whether AI is doing something differently from the human recruiters in the job interview. Starting with step 1, now we redo the analysis on the conditional on having accepted the job offer. And what we find is that conditional on having accepted the job offer, you have an increase of 6% of people starting the job if they get a job interview conducted by an AI recruiter. The 6% gain is maintained over 30 and 60-day retention. It's significant. And then for the 90-day and 120-day, the result is positive, but it is not significant due to a shrinking sample. As I mentioned, we have a very high turnover, so there is a very shrinking sample, basically. So at least here, we know that conditional on having accepted a job offer, AI leads to a higher retention rate. Okay. Now we need to look at how who is staying on the job position and who is leaving, basically. So what we look at is we have access of people who leave the job in question after 30 days, we have access to the reason for departure, whether they were fired or whether they left voluntarily. And we also know the reasons in the case of they were fired. So looking at the leave type, we find that basically within the share of employees who left, basically you have 58% of people in the human branch that left because they wanted to leave and work for a competitor, so nearly 60%. And you have the same rates in the AI branch. That is to say, there is no difference between the people who leave the company, whether they were recruited by, they were interviewed by an AI or interviewed by a human recruiter. So that is to say, there is 40% of the population here that gets fired within those who leave. 40% get fired after 1 month, and this 40% is not different between the AI and the human branch. So here we have two facts. One, condition having accepted the job offer, AI leads to a better retention. And when you look at the exit decomposition, there is no difference between the human and the AI branch. That is to say, AI doesn't lead to screening for more sticky or more reluctant firms to fire their candidates. So we have established that something is happening better in the AI branch, and now we are trying to understand what is going on. So this is what we're going to show in our key mechanism, because now something must be happening in the job interview. Okay, so what are AI interviewers doing differently than human recruiters? So the key takeaway that I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, and I want to recall here, is that AI standardizes the interview process by performing tasks more consistently than the human recruiters. And this leads the candidates to reveal more precisely the type, and therefore leaving and giving more hiring relevant information for the human recruiters to make their decisions, basically. So to show you this point, we're going to do a 3-step analysis using the interview transcript data that we have from both branches, from the AI branch and the human branch. And the first thing we need to show, and I'm just saying it here on this slide to save time, is that interviews matter. When you look at basically the interview score and the interview evaluation or comment made by the human recruiters, you see that they strongly predict job offers in the human branch, even after controlling for test score. So this speaks in favor of the role of the job interview. In this case, we are recruiting for customer service position. The interviews is really an important stage of the screening process because it leads you to screen for communication skills. The second thing we're going to show you in detail is that AI standardizes the interviews by performing different tasks of interviewing more consistently. I'm going to come back to this point in a minute. And then we're going to show how this consistency prompts candidates basically to better reveal the type and therefore express more hiring relevant information for the human recruiters to use and make a job offer. So far, so good? Okay. So let's start with a step where AI basically standardizes the job interviews. What does it mean? So both the human recruiters and the AI recruiters have to cover 14 topics during the job interview, like candidate background in terms of like education, work experience, scenario type of questions, the type of question I show you at the start of this talk and the interview excerpts. And what we find is that basically on average, AI interviews cover 45% of topics in average compared to 38% of topic covered in the human branch. So there is a more consistent topic coverage in the AI branch. AI interviews are also twice as likely as the human recruiters basically to cover at least 10 of out 14 topics. Sorry, so in the AI branch, you have 50% of chance of covering 10 topics out of the 14 compared to 25% of chance in the human branch. So there is a more consistent topic coverage. The second thing is that, of course, it's a natural conversation. So that is to say, if the AI asks a question to the candidate and say, where did you study? And the human, for instance, candidate reply, I worked in that firm. the AI is going to go with the flow and say, okay, you want to talk about your work experience first, that's fine. They will talk with the work experience, but then they will come back on track with the expected guideline. If it was supposedly to cover first education and then work experience. What we find is that basically AI agents are more likely to basically follow the expected guideline set up by the firm, basically. So they are more closely to the guideline than the humans interviewer. And what we find is that there is really a bimodal pattern in the human condition where you have some candidates, some human recruiters truly being structured and following the guideline, whereas there is a lot of human recruiters being completely off script. So they forget, they don't come back on track, and they don't cover some points. The AI has a much lower variance and has a much more uniform shape in the way it covers the topic, basically. And you can see this here, where you see on the red the AI coverage. And what you see, for instance, is that you have 46% of the AI interviews being basically at least 75% correlated with the expected guideline compared to 23% of the human interviews. And as you can see, the AI is at least positively correlated with the expected guideline. And you have a lot of humans interviewer being even negatively correlated with the human, with the expected guideline, basically. So this is a second task that AI is doing more consistently. First was covering more topics, now following more consistently the order. The third type of task that the AI candidate is doing differently than the human recruiters is the language that the AI recruiters are using to cover these topics. And so what we find is that basically AI recruiters have a higher vocabulary richness than the human recruiters in the way they ask questions. And it is much more consistent in the language that they use across candidates. That is to say, they don't really vary in the style of their questioning and wording that we use across the different types of candidates. That is to say, for instance, they won't say, hey, where you from to one candidate and hi, where you from? You know, they will use the same tone, the same type of language, whereas you have a lot of variance in the style of human recruiters. And this is interesting here because you are recruiting for customer services position, right? So putting candidates at a higher standard in terms of vocabulary richness, it's also interesting to see how the human candidate reacts to a high level of language, because you don't want your own employees to have a low level of vocabulary richness. Okay, so far we see what AI is standardizing in the job interview process. And now how this basically standardization impacts what candidates are going to reveal to the recruiters during the job interview. So to do this analysis, first, we look at the human transcripts from the human interviews, and we look at, within those human transcripts, what human recruiters are looking for when they make a job offer decision. So on the x-axis, you have a regression coefficient, and on the y-axis, I'm going to show you different linguistic features that we extract from the human transcript, and then we try to understand which one is a predictor in a positive way and a negative way of a job offer made in the human transcript. This we will use as the ground truth of a human expert, basically. So on the y-axis here, you see different types of linguistic features that are relevant for the customer service position and are standards. So for instance, back-channel cues is all this type of these kind of things. And for instance, number of exchange at the bottom is a level of interaction that you have during a job interview. And when we regress these linguistic features on the job offer in the human branch, what we find is that basically some of these linguistic features are negative predictors of a job offer, and some are positive predictor of a job offer in the human branch. I give you two examples. One, the back-channel cue is a negative predictor of a job offer. So if a candidate use a lot of these type of back-channel cues, they are basically deteriorating their likelihood of getting a job offer. If a candidate is showing a lot of interactivity, a lot of number of exchange with the human recruiters, this is a positive predictor of a job offer in the human branch. And now the question we are asking, which between the AI interviews and the human interviews is more likely to draw this basically this picture. And what we find on the right panel, on panel B, is a comparison between AI-based interviews and human-based interview. In red, AI, in gray, humans. And what you find is that candidates which are in AI interviews are more likely to display a high level of interactivity. So this bottom event here, high level of interactivity than the candidate who have a job interview with a human candidate. And the human candidate who have a job interview with an AI are also less likely to display the negative predictors of a job, negative linguistic features, which are a negative predictor of a job offer in the human condition. So in some sense here, the stars red means it's in favor of AI and gray stars in favor of humans. So in some sense, it shapes positively the interview environment. And this is basically how, from the conditional job offers, job offer accepted retention and the exit decomposition, basically this translates to a better match quality. So the key takeaway to conclude this presentation is that we did an expert forecast with our recruiters from the firm before showing their results. And what we find was that contrary to the expert forecast, who all predicted that AI will perform worse than human recruiters, we find that AI leads to an increase in job offers, an increase in job starters, and an increase in retention. We saw that conditional job offer accepted, and through the decomposition analysis, there is a better match quality happening through the AI branch. Looking at the transcripts from the job interviews, this tells us why. The AI basically standardized the job interview task, as in covering topics, structured, and having a richer vocabulary. And in return, this led candidates to express linguistic features which are more positively predictors of job offers and less likely to express negatively valued linguistic features by the human recruiters. So in one line, if I have to conclude, I would say that basically AI here is nothing very magic. It's just like at massive scale, what you have a lot of volume and the variance is a negative outcome for the firms. Basically here, AI helps to replace this inconsistency by basically standardizing this noisy stage of information collection, which is a job interview, by providing more precise signal for human decision maker when they make decision makings for hiring. Thank you very much. It's 45 minutes, so yeah.
Thanks so much, Brian. This was super fascinating. I would say we can maybe first try to just ask questions openly, and if it's too many, we can maybe use the raise hand version. Maybe if I may start with a question. So I have a few questions, but maybe the most pressing one is like, you say like that AI on average performs better. You also have this bimodal distribution of human interviewers. Do you have like a distribution of human interviewers with respect to their performance? And where is AI there? So are there still like 10, 20% of humans who perform better than AI, or is AI dominating everyone?
Yes, so we just did this analysis a few days ago, so I have an answer. So basically, I don't have the ranking of the AI relatively to the top performance humans because it would be a bit hard for me to interpret this measure, but I can say that basically AI is better in some of these tasks than 86% of different human recruiters. But
Okay, so
to answer... Yeah, exactly. To answer fully your question, which I can't here, which is basically you asking me, let's say you take as the top 10% human recruiters and looking at the ranking of the decile, for instance.
Yeah, but like about the top 10% human recruiters are still on the level of AI, right? As I understand it.
Yes, but here
yes.
but I need to make this analysis precise in the paper, which I haven't done yet.
No, well, this would be super interesting to see, like, is there still like whom does it replace and whom do you still need in terms of this job?
Yes, a answer to that would be that, like, even if this is true, in our case here, the decision is made by the average decision maker.
Yeah.
So in some sense here, one, and the second thing I can say, I mean, you're absolutely right, but the second thing I can say is that PSG, the recruiting firm itself doesn't know how to recruit for top performance recruiters. They claim a lot they have like experts, but they don't know actually how to recruit top performance experts. So in some sense, they are facing themselves variants, basically.
Okay, interesting. Is there any other question? Just feel free to just jump in and ask.
Hi, Brian. So, hi, can I ask? So it's interesting that nowadays a lot of job seekers they actually use AI tools like to kind of game or cheat in their interviews as well, right? So that side
Yes.
maybe is even more common, I guess. So
Yes.
are you think how do you think about that? Like both were like two sides, both employee and employers both use those delegations, especially with AI agents now, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, very good question. So, I mean, one, we are going to a world where each one of us are going to have our AI agents applying to different positions. I mean, in equilibrium, right? You're going to have Robin AI agents applying to jobs a bit everywhere, coordinating with other AI recruiters. And then I think we're going to have a set scenario where you're going to come back and there we're going to be a match where a subset you're going to meet with the human recruiters only for a subset of position. That might be one thing. The other thing I want to say is that there is a lot of easy cheating happening before and after the job interview. So like everyone is using AI to write the cover letters, to essays, to write the CV. So this is shifting, in my opinion, the role towards more interviews, right? Because interviews, even if you could cheat, I'm not denying it, it's much harder to cheat during a job interview. And so it's going to redefine the role of job interviews because so far they've been really noisy, really subjective, as Matthias is saying also. It's like you have some recruiters who are really great, some recruiters who are really bad. So, but now we're going to have to standardize the job interview to be more than just screening for communication skills. For instance, OpenAI now, if you talk to them, you will see that basically they ask coders during a job interview to explain code live, not to redo it. So that's going to be like a mixed screening type where you screen for communication skill of your coder, but also their capacity of understanding code. Now, in our setting, we have a project with a firm about fraud detection, but during a job interview, but it is not the way you think, because here it's a bit hard to understand what does it mean to cheat during a job interview for customer service position. For coding type of task, I 100% agree. You will have a screen open and you will just say it. Here, it's a bit interesting to understand what does it mean to have a robust AI agent. So we have a project where we are trying to see whether the candidates are capable of cheating in the following sense, prompting the AI interview in a way to force the AI interview to ask them the question they want to answer, and always push away the question they don't want to answer. So we are basically developing different types of prompts, which are more or less strategically proof, and see whether AI, when it is more deviating from the expected guideline or less, when he's more vulnerable to these live injection attacks, basically. But that's like still in pilot phase. So I don't have a full answer to your question. I hope it helps.
yeah, so those like tools, right, from both sides, tools change like a new technology adoption for employee and employers that may change the context or contents in the interviews, right, in the interaction. Another possibility is that one side or both sides thinking about those new technology or those new tools, they may de-invest or invest more or using the interviews. Sorry, what I want to say is that, for example, employers may rely on interview less. They may prefer to rely on referrals more now, right? So
yeah, that's a very good point. So this basically we have like another paper which is not ready, but like we are okay, where is it? Sorry. So this one basically here, so you should be ready in 2 weeks or so. So the question is like, what is a signal during a hiring process? What is a signal, right? Like, should you basically give the option, for instance, to candidate to choose which interviewer they should interview with? Should the firm use only referral? Should the firm use only objective test? Should you impose AI to everyone? And here, the separating and the pool equilibrium basically are like quite a bit complex, but you can find, so we have a Bayesian structural model with off-policy type of evaluation where we explore all these conditions. Because now the question is like, even if, let's say, you give the choice to the candidate to choose AI, now it's not the firm is not only using the interview as a signal, right? But is also using the fact that the humans chose to be interviewed by an AI as a signal. And now you can think about that choice as a way basically to recover some kind of like skill signal for the firm. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thanks.
Any other question? Maybe just a very brief one. Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, a very quick question. Hi, Brian. Super interesting study. Yeah.
Thanks.
So my question is, I don't know if you have seen any, like, on the candidate side, what type of candidate benefit the most from this standardized AI interview process? Because I was thinking then it may shed light on this kind of classical question that we have in mind, that in-person interviews sometimes have discrimination or other type of friction. So I was thinking, in addition to showing that how AI help, actually this can also kind of look in the opposite direction, which is then telling us this by comparing the standardized AI interview result versus the person interview result to shed light on what type of friction that we have in the traditional human environment.
Yeah, super great question. So 2 answers to your question. One, when offered the choice, 78% of the candidates choose to be interviewed by an AI. When you decompose this one, you see that basically 80% are women and 76% are men. So women are more likely to choose AI. That's one. Second thing is, when getting a job interview with an AI, basically in general, you have like 50% less reported perceived gender discrimination. And this is more pronounced for women as well. So there is a gain in the welfare setting from the mind of the candidates to have an interview with an AI. They are more likely to choose it. But for the firm, it's not clear whether offering this choice is always great, right? Because what we find is that when offering the choice, for instance, you are also showing some kind of like negative sorting. People who have a lower test score are more likely to choose AI as well. But when you look at the welfare sides in general, we have a survey on the 3 branches of the candidates, and what we find is that there is no loss of welfare to have an interview with AI, but apart from the scheduling availability of the AI agents who is always available for an interview, which makes a lot of sense for workers in a low job later who have like a lot of different family constraints, to have this availability of the AI recruiters at any moment during the day. It's a lot of gain for people. And the gender discrimination I mentioned, we haven't much. The reason is that basically I don't have a lot of pre-treatment information regarding the candidate. I have only the gender and where they're coming from, referral or Facebook, etc. And the reason for why we don't have a lot of pre-treatment variable here is that basically the firm never use CV screening because it's not part of the hiring process. But yeah.
Yeah,
Did I answer a bit?
This is super interesting, because I think there is also growing literature trying to understand how kind of the digital economy in general can help us to think about the gender inequality or any other type of discrimination in the labor market. And what you just said, it can actually decompose into different mechanisms. For example, just preference-based discrimination, or actually this offers people with more availability. So for example, there is a paper in the US context showing that how Uber can help us think about gender inequality in the taxi traditional taxi industry. So I feel like there you also have a lot of variation to help us understand different mechanisms that can how this AI interview thing affects labor market in general. It's super interesting. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Exactly. I mean, this is also what we are trying, like what we find. I mean, to be honest, also like we find, so when you look at how this potential AI discrimination happen, when you look at how the human recruiters evaluate job interviews, job candidate who got the job interview with an AI versus a job candidate who got an interview with a human, despite showing you here that AI leads to better signal, more precise signal to the human recruiters, the human recruiters discount the interviews coming from an AI versus the one they conducted themselves. And when basically they come to basically evaluate a candidate from two branches, they basically use more the standardized tests when it comes to an AI-based candidates versus using more the job interviews when it comes to their own interviews they conducted basically. So there is also this new type of discrimination, as you mentioned, which is just punishing potentially candidates who have been having an interview with an AI, whether they chose it or not, basically here.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Yul.
Hi, Brian. Also,
Yes.
Yeah, Wen, please go ahead.
sure. Just a quick question on the generalizability of the study. So the study itself is primarily focused on entry-level customer service jobs, right? Where interviews, I think, are or can be relatively structured, and evaluation criteria are also more or rather clear-cut. So I'm curious that for jobs that are more creative or less standardized, for instance, more mid to high-skilled jobs, do you expect AI interviewers to also perform better? Or is the advantage of AI primarily associated with tech contexts or jobs where the signal of qualification is easier to define? So how does it, well, what's the implication for this for a broader, markets?
Yeah. Great question. I mean, one, I can say that like frontline jobs are the most representative type of job in the world. Like actually most of the job are like frontline jobs, first of all. In our country, in the Philippines, customer services are like millions of jobs. So that's, like there is an underestimation by us researchers about how massive the market for this type of job I'm studying here is, right? So in terms of generability, there is already also like general effect here just by looking at this market that might be translating everywhere.
Right.
Now,
do you have a rough idea, like what's the share of these positions in the total jobs? Let's say in the Philippines.
I don't have it, but I don't have it in my mind, but I will have it yes, that's a good question. But this is for sure several percent, but I don't know how, I don't have it in my mind.
Okay.
So yeah, good question. But I mean, I can give you also just like, if you look at the revenue of Teleperformance of the parent company, it's 10 billion per year, $10 million per year. They have 500,000 employees and they process 4 to 5 million candidates per year. So that gives you also a scope of the type of like at the global scale, basically, if that helped. Now to your second part of the question, which is, so of course it's going to have, and this is what we're trying to study in this like follow-up paper on whether you should have a mixed type of interviews, some part with the AI, some part with the humans, depending on the type of skill you want to screen. Like maybe if you want to talk about culture of your enterprise, or like whether you want the humans to be able to screen your firm. In that case, maybe you want to have a conversation with a human recruiter, but some other part of the interview can be basically automatized to the AI. This is another thing. And a third thing I want to say is that so far, take two jobs for which you may have the same linguistic features here, right? So let's say being a teacher also require having high interaction, right? During a conversation. Well, if I show you here that interactivity is better screened by an AI, here, right? In that case here, why not using AI for also screening interactivity in this other job potentially? So you can imagine having a distance, linguistic distance, basically on how you list the linguistic feature in your job, you list the linguistic feature in this other job, and you see how much there is overlap, basically. That might be a way to see how you might want to generalize the use of AI interviewer across the job ladder, basically. But for sure, it will be a mix in some sense with AI and humans.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Hi, Brian. Yeah, very nice
Hi,
paper.
Shum, are you?
Yeah, so just curious, like, do you think like high retention means higher quality, or is just like probably their quality is lower, they are just feel lucky to be included in jobs so that they work longer? So
Okay, sorry, sorry, yeah.
yeah, so just and this also related to Wen's point. So about selecting the candidates, that could for some of the, although like for most of the job, we like kind of standardize the job and also standardize the interview can cover most of the people. But what are the heterogeneities? Would the best people being selected, or they just leave when they see that the interview is interviewer is AI and they just go to some better companies that they feel more privileged.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to answer in two things. One, why we are using retention as match quality. So I'm going to go back to the start here. So the reason for why retention is a good metric for match quality is because of those 5 reasons. You have a high turnover, you have a low friction market. So there is an easy separation on both sides of the market between employees and employers. There is a high performance monitoring type of work. So of course, if your work is not highly monitored, it might be a problem. There is also here fast learning of the employee type. At the start of the job, they have a 1-week training. If they don't pass it, they're fired, basically. So if you stay in the pool after 1 week, it means already as a short-term proxy that you are a good candidate. And there is no incentive and bonuses here. So that's for why we're using retention as match quality for the first part of the answer. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, so basically the retention most determined by the employer rather than the employee.
No, because there is also now, because of this easy separation here, their employees that are also leaving. So that's for the first part. Now to answer your part about who is staying and who is leaving, let's go back to the, so you have first, you have the conditional effects, okay? So that's one to show you that there is conditional effect in favor of AI. This is one part of the answer. The second part of the answer is not who is staying and who is leaving. As you're saying, maybe here in this pool, you have actually people who are just stickier or firms being reluctant to fire. So in our sample, after 30 days, we have about 12% of people who leave. And within this 12% who leave, who is leaving, who is staying? When you look at the decomposition of the exit, you find that within those who leave, 60% of people who leave voluntarily in both branches between AI and human. So it means you have 40% of people being fired within those who leave. So this here tells you two things. One, it tells you one, that basically AI established a minimal bound of quality because there is no difference here. But also, as you say, it is unlikely that AI is actually screening the top decile performance because there is no difference here in the voluntary departure. If AI was screening for the best candidates, there will be some non-monotonicity here that would translate in having higher voluntary departure for AI, which is not the case. So most probably AI established a baseline at least as good as a human and then improve the middle range of the candidate, basically.
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Of course, sorry, and then to conclude, of course, if I want to characterize my ranking here, this is where there is a limitation of retention because retention is, at the end of the day, only telling me these bounds. But if I want to look at like the ranking, I would need the KPI, customer service satisfaction, number of calls they're making, etc., which I don't have yet. But if I have that, then I could see the job interviews on each KPI and make a ranking basically more precise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's very helpful. And I think the other advantage of the AI interviewers is that it's very easily scalable. So for the human interviewer, probably for the first few interview they have, their attention is there and the productivity is quite high. They select very well. But when for the last few ones in the day, they might be quite tired. So that's when AI can really succeed.
Yes. So I wanted to do this analysis on the on the day, but I don't have enough variation within a day in the human branch to do it. But basically here you have already this indication that basically AI on average is more likely to stick to this consistency. So probably for these behavioral reasons that you're mentioning here. Yes.
Yeah. Overall, really interesting result. And I think for Wen's point about extending this to some high-skilled environment, this is also very important question. I guess the pool of the interviewees is very different, and their concerns will also be quite different. So really looking forward to your some future work if you have more resources to extend this to
I
other
mean, absolutely. So the next step of this project is we're going to redo this job market paper normally on the worldwide with normally bigger sample size for different types of jobs starting March. So that will be like in the Philippines, in Vietnam, Brazil, and other countries. So we will have access to other type of jobs and more likely hires. So that will be a chance for us to look at these different types of jobs. Yep.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Hi, Brian. Sorry, I have a question. So I find this paper very interesting, but I'm thinking if this company keep using AI to interview applicants, maybe they can communicate with each other about how to game the system, like what is the pattern of AI interview, AI questions.
Yeah, so I am very sorry. I have to run to another meeting, so I will take this last question if that's okay, Matthias.
Yes, yeah, no, it's great. Yeah.
So one, the likelihood. So we have a very big sample size. Candidates are not aware whether they're going to be interviewed by an AI or a human before they get invited to it. And when they get invited to it, basically the only time they know they're going to have an AI is when they pick up the phone. There is like a lot of different aisles. This is an individual jobs. There is no reason for candidates to communicate with each other. And if this happens, basically this would like increase the duration massively in the AI interviews. And it's not what we find basically here. On average, the time are the same between the human and the AI. But for sure, all these gaming stories are like very important, and we're going to study them by prompting the AI differently to see if they catch different type of behavior strategies that we are not seeing right now here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So thanks so much, Brian, for this very interesting, inspiring talk. I think we're all looking forward to finding out what comes next. And so, yeah, and we're looking forward to reading the next papers. All the best.
Thank you so much for the invitation and for all your great questions. Thanks a lot.
No. Great. Thanks everyone for this very active discussion. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much.